welcome to the 2-month review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take a single book, break it down section by section, talk about it, make jokes, make observations, discuss it,
Wait,
analyze it.
You just failed the sobriety test. What was that? Observations?
Observations. I was pausing. I was making sure I've got the YouTube live so I can see if anyone asks us any questions, because apparently people have been, and I haven't even noticed that they're on. But I had to make sure it paused, or that it muted. And as I was muting it and I trying to speak, that was a lot of things going on at once.
Look,
not possible.
Look, officers, I'd like to make some observations that this is profiling. Just because I'm driving on a sidewalk does not mean you can pull me over. I use my indicator lights.
There's no rule against driving like this.
Observations. You're going to hear that later. You'll be like, what the hell?
Yeah. Fun. Oh, God. It's daylight savings time.
Look what it did to my hair. Oh, man. Daylight savings fucked my hair up.
Oh, man.
It usually doesn't look this bad.
So anyway, so this week this whole season we've been talking about Radiant Terminus by Anton Volodine, and this week in particular we're going over chapters. I forget now. It's up to through 26, but where's the first one start? It was 20 through 26, and we were going to have Rhett McNeil rejoin us. He was on the podcast a few weeks ago. He was going to rejoin from Tulsa. He's not. Isn't replying to anything, so I'm not sure if he's forgot about it, missed it, had some other obligation, but he might jump on here at any point in time. He has the link, so we could have a special guest in the middle of our conversation, which is cool. But so how are you doing, first of all?
Oh, not bad.
Banter a bit before.
Yeah, staying busy. Yeah, like editing a couple people's books and then trying to do my own book and then teaching 2 classes, and it's just like, ugh. Everything's all at once for some reason. Like after I'm done with this wave, I'll probably have nothing to do but like eat ramen noodles and be skinny for like 6 months. So I have no idea why it all comes at once. So I can just
it's the worst.
Flounder for a moment. But yes, other than that, I'm great.
Yeah, awesome.
No complaints.
It's spring break here at the university.
Is it?
That's why we're going to do 2 episodes this week too, because I don't have to teach. It's easier for us to get caught up. So like if you are watching this and wondering why it's on a Monday and not a Wednesday, and why, or if you're listening to the podcast, why it's early, we skipped last week because we had conflicts with our guest, and she's going to come on this Wednesday. And so instead, so that we can finish this before AWP,
conflict with your guest. We got in a big fight, and she beat the shit out of me, but I'm okay with it now. So.
I put aside my feelings. I figure like it's okay. It's all for the show. It's good.
I got the stitches out. I'm feeling okay now. Makes it sound like you guys got in a fight.
Time conflicts. I think it was like, it's whatever. The time didn't work. So she's going to come on this Wednesday. So to make sure that we got this done before AWP, if we do the episode today, one on this Wednesday, and then one on the following Wednesday, that will be the last episode, and we'll have finished a Radiant Terminus. So right before AWP and everyone being there buying poetry.
Sure. Not to jump ahead, but what's after Radiant Terminus? Do you have ideas?
Yeah, the plan was to do Schoen's Codex 1962, in part because I'm supposed to teach it in my class, and I've read it once, and I don't want to reread it for my class just on its own, but I think it ties into this in a way, because it is a science fiction book in the end, although you won't know that for a very long time. He's an Icelandic writer, famous for having written the songs for, or some of the music for Dancer in the Dark that Björk performed. He's been a musician for his whole life, and he's also written a number of novels now. Most of them are very short and very poetic and sort of surreal and imagistic, and fit sort of the Radiant Terminus or the Volodine kind of mode of writing in some ways. Codex 1962 is a big book of his, and it's really 3 novels put together.
Of course. Awesome pick. Yeah.
Kind of amazing. I'm gonna
pick the fat king size Snicker one. Why have a fun size when you could have a king size?
Fun size are for losers. The whole point. Like people are scared of it. We're gonna make it easy for them.
All right.
Show them that it's easy. But some people don't. There's been mixed reactions to the book online. Most people I know really liked it, but there's a few people who are like, no, I can't go into this all that far. But I think it's a pretty amazing book, and I read it when in galleys last year. So and it's published by FSG. It's available readily everywhere. And I think it's going to be like a Best Translated Book Award shortlist or at least long list, hopefully shortlist book. So we'll be able to see if that happens as we go
That's
through the
tampering.
season.
Let's not don't tamper with stuff. Just let it
I'm
be.
guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have a question about reviews. Are you ever curious or skeptical of things that get just only good reviews?
Yeah. I don't think that I think most things get reviewed based on something other than the book itself.
Okay.
Like in most cases, it's like either the story surrounding that book, the author as profile, the connection between the publisher and the review outlet, all those things I think kind of make it where you're like, and I mean, we do it here. So like what books we get, I don't even know. I don't even want to hazard a guess, but like probably 500 books for review for the 3% website every year. And the ones that we pick are ones that as I'm going through and entering them into the database to be like, oh, this book sounds pretty good and it's from Feminist Press and I know this translator. We'll put that aside as like when we'll try and get reviewed. This book that like I don't know, I don't have any connection to, and it doesn't sound particularly good, we're just not going to try and get that one reviewed because it's too much. But it might be a really great book, but it's like skimming the back and the cover and then going on. Like if I know anything about that person, that author, or that translator.
Well, no, because I'm just thinking like if you're in a as far as literary fiction goes, if you're in a literary space and everybody likes it, did you create something that's good? Like that?
Yeah.
I don't think you did. Like
Probably
I don't think
not.
you can. I don't think you can. Like I think for it to be good, like it would have to. There's gonna have to be some people that this is not for them. This is bad.
That was
therefore it is bad.
That was like one of the first articles last year that I wrote was on that book it's called The Perfect Nanny by
oh yeah, I remember the cover.
Yeah, and my whole point was that you will only be a bestseller if it has an equal number of 5-star and 1-star reviews on Amazon, because you can't have everyone likes it. It's not going to do anything. It has to be split. And their 1-star reviews for that were amazing, and there are a shitload of them, and it sold thousands and thousands and thousands of copies. It's the only book from last year in translation that really sold a lot.
Yeah, I don't believe anything I'm saying. I'm just setting it up for when mine comes out and it gets a bunch of bad reviews. I'll be like, see, I told you it was good. See, it's got a lot of 1-star reviews.
On the opposite side of that, in a way, is the people's reliance on like this book is not for everyone, which I think is dumb, like a dumb statement. Like it's meaningless.
Yeah.
Like, of course, like what book is for everyone? Like that's not a possible thing. Like, so like they use it as like a backhanded
audience
like,
for your book. People 18 to 26 that are getting out of college looking for a job. Like I wrote it for that. Like, oh, okay, great.
And like it's like a backhanded insult. This book is not for everyone. Okay, cool. The book that is for everyone is like The Little Engine That Could, maybe, or Peppa Pig.
Oh, my dad was killed by a train, so I don't really want
to. There you go.
And then later eaten by wild hogs. So those two things are really just brings up some bad memories for me. Not for me. 1 star. Thomas the Train Book. 1 star. My dad was killed on a train track. Okay, it's not for everyone.
Not for everyone. Nope, absolutely not.
I could definitely see Radiant Terminus getting glowing reviews and getting like what the hell is this shit kind of review. You know what I mean?
I can't remember if there are any confused reviews. I know that there were a lot of positive ones, and a lot of people really liked it, and it did win awards. So it had that going for it. Plus, it isn't hard to follow. It's just
only good books win awards. Also,
right. Well, I will plug. So this is going to be coming. This podcast will come out before the post will come out, but there's going to be a post on the website about the idea of a Hall of Fame living writers. So anyone who wants to, you'll be able to participate by filling out a thing. Just wait for the post. But in terms of Hall of Fame living writers and what that may or may not mean, Volodine would maybe make my Hall of Fame as a living writer. I might consider him one of the 10 living writers who can make it, because he's written so much, so prolifically, and so there's no one like him.
I'm assuming you're basing this off of baseball.
Yeah. Okay. Of course.
Okay.
There's a lot more to the article. I just couldn't write it last night. Sure. So tired, and like there's family all weekend. I just couldn't do it. But tonight,
so Volodine would be like a utility fielder. Like he's not like your center fielder that hits for power or whatever. He's your utility fielder with great on base percentage. He's always in the game.
That would be like if you're putting together the team, but for the Hall of Fame, like he is.
I know.
But I've got an analogy here. Let me see if I can follow this. So he's the player who doesn't have like a significant high WAR. He's just a consistent WAR generator. So he's like a 5-win player every year with every book. None of the books are like a 10 WAR, but they're all like 5 or 6. And he's produced 42 books so far. So he's like the Bartolo Colon of writer.
The fact that you made it this long and did this, we'll just let you in.
Yeah. No, yeah. Like that, you can make that argument for some people. Like how many people play till they're like 49? Like 2.
Franco, whatever that dude is.
Yeah, Leo Franco and Bartolo Colon. Yeah, it's insane. But you've only read this book and haven't finished it, but would you consider him a possible living Hall of Fame candidate?
No.
Ooh.
I only get 10.
Tough.
You said
tough
10.
Choice.
I know, but you said 10, right?
10.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't put the 10 yet together, but like this doesn't come to mind as my top 10.
Not the book, the author.
Yeah, no, I know the author.
Okay.
Well, because I'm going to do Franz and the fiction writer and Franz and the essayist. There's 2.
Oh, yeah. He's like Shohei Ohtani of writing. He both pitches and bats. Oh, man.
Speaking of pitches and bats, aren't there going to be 2 Nobels this year?
Yeah.
They're doubling up,
making up for last year.
I didn't realize that's how it works, apparently.
No. It's gonna be something insane. Like
that makes sense. Like, go back to baseball. They have the strike year. We're gonna have 2 World Series champions this year. We missed one last year. Let's just do 2.
Poor Montreal.
It doesn't work like that.
That would be amazing, though. I would be really into that. Like, what if you had to run 2 seasons concurrently, almost? Like, just be able to like have two.
You finish the playoffs and just have to start it over again. All right.
Yeah.
Do the playoffs again.
Didn't they have that weird strike year with the NBA where they only ended up playing like 41 games or something?
I don't know.
It was like in the early 2000s. They played like an abridged schedule because they couldn't get the labor dispute worked out in time. So it was like a weird like half season before the playoffs. You could do that. Baseball with like 1 half season World Series, half season World Series. I'd be into it.
So I'm sure I don't want to steal your thunder too much, but are the majority of your top 10? Your top 10 isn't right. Your 10 living Hall of Fame writers, are the majority of them writing in a language other than English?
I don't think so. I put together a list with a couple other people, and then like everyone else that sent me their list, they're super varied. Like they're pretty varied, but they're all varied in a few specific ways that I want to think through and write out. This is like it's going to be.
Well, I just need to know what the criteria is, because I don't even know
invent it.
What the hell does that even mean to be a Hall of Fame writer?
So I have a prefatory paragraph for that it's not the canon, and that it's like more like what would be like a museum, but with like the plaques for those great writers. And like you could include all the people from the past, but like usually if you assume that there's an X number of living writers who are surefire, like they're always going to be there.
So like, let's call it the steroid era would be like E.L. James or something. If you look at the numbers that she put out, if you're
including sales, if that's part of your criteria,
right? If that's part of your criteria, well, wouldn't that be Hall of Fame worthy? Like, how can you dominate?
Or you can say that the Hall of Fame is like someone who's going to be read 100 years from now.
Yeah,
so you still talk about like certain baseball players who are in the Hall of Fame who are not spectacularly good by today's standards, but were like in their time frame and are legendary by their.
No, this is tricky because like part of me want to put like like E.L. James and Stephen King and stuff like that in
James
there.
Patterson.
Well, yes, that would be like, of course, and
Daniel
and all of his other. See, Volodine's not going to make it. I won't even get through the.
But then if you don't use, but are those books going to be read in 100 years, or are they disposable? Are they sales things now that just?
Yeah.
So it's a good discussion. Maybe we'll see if I can get a post out of it. That's all I want.
There's definitely a post there, because I would probably make my list based off of just the quality of what I consider the quality of the writing, and like screw numbers. I don't care about numbers.
Yeah, I know. That's the part and this ties into a long thing that I have to write too. That's part of this too. There's one other, like now that Sam Miller's back on Infectively Wild podcast, like I'm in like heaven, but I also have a million ideas for posts because he always generates a million ideas for me. And he had one there, they're talking about, they got all these scouting reports, like 73,000 scouting reports from the Cincinnati Reds over like a 20-year period. And one of them was like, Ken Griffey Jr. is great. If he were like Pete Griffey, if you had a team of Pete Griffeys, you'd be really good. And he's like, what? This is nonsense. But he's like, but what do you say about a player who's great? Like how do you pitch something that's great? So like for books, I was thinking about like, how do you, if you already have something that's popular and that people are reading, how as a bookseller or as a reviewer or whatever, what do you then say to get people over the edge? Or they're like, yeah, you know what? I'll give that a try. This book that's immensely popular that everyone's talking about.
It's like,
you finally convinced me.
It's like, how would you sell somebody like, she's probably too young to be on the Hall of Fame writers, but like Jesmyn Ward, like, what would you, she's good. She's really good.
Yeah, like, she's really good.
She wins awards. She's really good, and she's nice and like good to listen to, and a good writer. Like that sounds boring as hell. I'm not going to read that. Like, okay, she's amazing. Like, what? Yeah, how do you sell something that's great? You just, yeah, it's really great.
Like, how much does it not seem like you're talking down to someone? Like, yeah, no, this writer's really excellent. If you read her book, you're going to see that it's good. You're like, yeah, like I'm aware of that. Like,
you're in good hands with Jesmyn Ward.
It's like being like Ulysses is a great book. Like,
okay,
yeah,
I'm not going to read it. Yeah.
Speaking of books, so let's go into this. So I'll recap. We left off. The overall arching story was that Kronauer,
he's going to kill him.
Yeah, and Vasilisa were like they escaped the fall of the Second Soviet Union. They're going through the country. They're trying to find a place to live. They see a train. Vasilisa's dying. Kronauer goes to get help at what turns out to be Radiant Terminus, which is run by Solovyei, who is with Grandma Ugdal and like uses his 3 daughters and abuses them severely, and basically is in control of almost everyone in the way that they all feel like they're trapped inside his dream. He can enter people's minds. He can make them do things. He can ruin them. And last time we found out that, he went and found Vasilisa, brought her back to try and like recuperate her and give her to Samaya, his youngest daughter's husband, because he didn't like their relationship. He didn't want his daughter to be married to this guy. So he found a replacement essentially. But she finds out about it, goes all Captain Marvel and superhero on his ass, and like beats the shit out of him and puts a metal rod through his eye and out his ear. And they're like, oh shit, maybe he's really dead. And Hannko, his older daughter, tells Kronauer like, no, that won't kill him. Nothing will stop him. He's impossible to be stopped. They're then feeding the core, because they have to feed the nuclear core, and Vasilisa is going to be dumped in there, and that sends Kronauer over the edge, and he decides that he is going to kill Solovyei and help Hannko escape. And that is his new. So they've been in conflict this whole time, and now they're butting heads. And the last 2 chapters of this section, the last 3 chapters of this section, are that conflict. So,
and he's going to make Rut with Hannko when they escape.
I think he keeps trying to not make
Rut. Or is that the Cox language coming?
That's the Cox language.
My bad.
Yep, he's always trying to avoid the Cox language still. So he's like trying to figure out in the first chapter in 20 like what like to do, like how he could kill him, and like what he would be possible to kill him with. And he has like a pole, like a javelin. He's like, no, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna help. You're not gonna be able to stab him with that. But then he decides it goes a little bit into like his sort of rage and what this rage is and how it's connected to the Cox language and that urge to rot. And this has been something that we've talked about a billion times on here, that like that thought pattern or that sort of ideology runs throughout as one pole, for lack of a better analogy, of like the Cox language: men, violence, murder, sex.
And kind of religion too, right?
Kind of religion too.
Cult.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely cult.
Yep. But this is a quick little chapter in which he like, yeah, it's like I marked a lot of stuff in here in his like way of trying to deal with like his feelings, and with like Hannko, and like how to deal with this trauma in the appropriate way. And I think that a lot of this book has been about that, like how to connect, how to deal with like emotions and deal with these situations and not fall prey to the Cox language, and not fall prey to like these pre-existing modes of survival that have been passed on through people like Solovyei that are fascist and horrible. So like when he's like looking at Hannko, at one point he's like, he looked at the beautiful and strange double gaze of Hannko Volodine, and immediately the unexpected occurred. A reversal, a radical inversion of his feelings. Just a short while before, in front of Vasilisa Marachibli's, I don't know, cadaver, he had almost leaped onto this woman to strike her to death. The 2 of them had been alone, and at the moment he'd wanted to kill. There had been no other representative from Radiant Terminus there. He'd almost done it, but in a fraction of a second, this urge to murder had disappeared, giving way to tenderness, the effect of this beautiful and strange gaze. So it's like, I find it like
double gaze and gaze. All right.
I know there's so many gays in here, and like, yep, you know my feelings. Like in this case, though, in some ways, like it does feel more charged because it is talking about like his feelings are impacted by her looking at him. So it's more than just a physical look in this case. There is something more there. So it seems to make more sense.
Yeah.
And the double gaze being like these two kind of, I mean, it's her two colors of her eyes, but it's also like two different competing emotions, like his urge for revenge and then his urge to like take care of her because she'd asked him to help her out and to help her escape.
Yeah, and I was also struck with throughout all of that, there's this constant like how inept, like he realized how inept he is at all of this.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna fail. Like I'm gonna still try to do it, but I'm gonna fail. This isn't gonna work. I'm not good. I'm not a soldier. I'm like there's just this
soldier.
Yeah, this like this is a dumb plan. I don't know what I'm doing. This what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Like everything. Like I like that idea of wanting to change, but knowing like maybe without a premonition, or just knowing like, yeah, I'm not gonna do good.
Yeah. I can't take this guy. This guy's got like superpowers that can enter my dreams. Like this is no good. Like, and then this chapter ends with Hannko being like, do you hear me? I remember that later that I'm with you. She said as she stepped over the threshold, later and always, which is a real bringing home that connection between the human being bit and that they're compatriots in this battle against Solovyei. So this chapter is like really just like moving the pieces into place, like getting him out of the where they've been throwing all the stuff into the core, out to like Hannko into like, okay, I'm gonna do this. How am I gonna do it? Not with the javelin, because that does not seem strong enough. And she's on his side.
Yeah, there's a shift in the narrative here too. Like it picks up, the pace is faster, like it's driving the plot forward. Like you said, like this feels very like a conventional, like just wow, it feels like a normal book right here. Like this is weird. Right?
It's really just in the overall overarching ideas. I think that this book is weirder than like the bending of reality. It's not so much in like the structure per se, at least not yet. Well,
this is one of the fastest reading parts we've had so far.
This section really picks up. I mean, it does intentionally from like when she goes crazy through this end. Although this next chapter 21 is the amok, the night of being, where he goes amok and like tries to kill Solovyei, and it's fast because there's a lot of things happening, but in a way it's also like paced like it would be like a horror show or like a movie.
It felt like a dream, like the horror dream where there's the pipes and the steam and you're shooting at nothing, and like the person's laughing at you as you're missing, and you're it felt exactly like that, like a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of thing. Like I can't kill the monster. What am I doing? Yeah.
So this gave me crazy dreams, but let's go over this part and then I'll tell our crazy dreams and my crazy dream in the in between. But it's pretty insane. I just told Anthony about it and he's like kind of amazed by how bizarre this was. But so he goes in. So in the plot part of chapter 21, Kronauer breaks into the Soviet, like the house where Solovyei lives, finds gun and some weapon or some ammunition, and like has all those doubts that you're talking about. He's like, what am I going to do? Like, what's your plan? And he's like, either way, I'm screwed. Like it's never going to work. He shoots at someone, sees them escape. He doesn't know if it's Solovyei or not. Things disappear, come back. He's
just
never
shooting
sure.
at anybody.
Yeah, he's like, I can't see if that's Solovyei or if that's a woman. And he's still just like, I've just got to shoot at him. And they seem to like all like escape somehow. There's someone wearing like a leather bag over their face, like that, which could be Solovyei because he's got like, that he has a rod through his eye. But they go through, so he goes and he's like constantly decided he's going to kill him. He's going to find him. He's going to kill him. He's going to kill him. There's on 326, my favorite part, where it's like he goes into pure violence. Where at the distance in the darkness, Kronauer was ready to shoot at someone whose identity and intentions he couldn't be sure of. I can't do that, he told myself. That doesn't make any sense. And that's, again, going back to that like underlying nature of humanity at this moment is like, I need to shoot, but he's trying his best to just be legitimate. Then he gets to the place where he finds Solovyei, and Solovyei's like fucking with him and like going in his mind and being like, this is, you're not going to fail. Like, what's your real plan? Does someone really think like this? And he's like inventing, like repeating things that Kronauer thought, but inside of his mind. And he ends up trying to kill him, but there's no bullets left in the gun. And as he's dealing with Solovyei, someone comes up from behind him and smacks him in the head with a shovel, and he crumples to the floor, basically dead. Someone smashed in his skull. Well, he's not dead. Spoiler alert. But like this whole plan of killing Solovyei came to like that final confrontation in a room where Solovyei's like recovering with a beam through his eye and out his ear, and is still able to like go inside of Kronauer's mind and instill him with like doubt and fear and guilt, and then Solovyei fails.
Yeah, and they double down again on the bird imagery with the nest and the feathers and the
Yeah, he is overall. This is a pretty wild section. Like it was fun to read because it is very cinematic and like does have that kind of dreamlike quality, but like you can really feel, and there's a lot of smells in this one. There's more smells in the next section, but there's a lot of that sort of like atmospheric stuff that he does, like even related to like a person. So like on 325, where he's talking about, and he keeps going through this like of like, you know, I've got to kill him. He's like the alpha male. He's this bad. This is bad. He's like, there's some Cox language behind all this. He kept thinking silently, and then goes on. He's like, beneath all that, beneath the awful sludge of murder and vengeance, there's your spasms of a frustrated male machine. There are hundreds of millions of years of the animal cock that order your actions and Cox gestures and your Cox thoughts. And more than anything, that's what there is. But yeah, so this is all coming to a head. Like there's not a lot new in this so much as moving him into into this conflict and being very like confrontational. It also seems like the village disappears, like Solovyei's able to do that. And that comes up in a later section as well, where it's actually the next one, which you can kind of tie together. So section 22 is just one of the poems from Solovyei, which I have a new theory about. And that poem references like how he kept inventing these golem crows that he sent in for observation in the minor worlds of the Taiga. And where was it?
That's a good death metal band, by the way. Black metal, Golem Crow.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Or the name of an album.
It does seem like he says at some point, he says basically like he created, because we always had this feeling that we're in his dream and Solovyei's dream and he can control people, but that he created these golems that Kronauer is shooting at, and then could have them vanish or reappear and never be hurt. And like he's just fucking with Kronauer the whole way. And even from like his weak position, he's still strong enough to like control that landscape. And I feel like these poems are like his biography now, and more so than before. Like they become clearer and clearer as it goes along, that he's recounting what's going on at Radiant Terminus and what he did and what he's doing. Because they're starting to really intersect. Like there's two in this section that we read. There's 22 in which he's talking about that and talks about how like all this time passes, which then we find out does pass. And then in 24, there's a lot about like how he took Kronauer, how he had this conflict with Kronauer, and how he brought him into the fire and the flames and dried him out and resuscitated him so that he could be tortured for 1,440 years or whatever it might be. So I feel like those poems are not so much like, they're implied as like recordings that he had created before and are part of like his mind control, but they almost seem like contemporary to me now, as if that's his dream that he's living, or that's the experience that he's living. And that's sort of recounting what's been happening in his Radiant Terminus world. That makes sense.
Yeah, I know you were looking up angel numbers. Is there an angel number for 10,401? That was a big random one. Jeez. 10,401 full years.
Angel 10,401.
I don't know if there's that many angels. That's a lot of angels.
No.
Yeah.
Not too many angels.
How about 1,047?
1,047 for sure. Angel meaning 1,047. Angel number 1047 signifies that you make use of your influence. It brings knowledge and understanding. When you are seeing this angel number, it means that you have skills and talents that you are not making use of.
Well, he clearly was not making use of his skills and talents. He failed because that's the failure of his not counting the bullets, shooting at distractions, letting him get in his head.
Yep. So, yeah, he's like a bad baseball player. He's like in his head. He also like he doesn't make use of his things because he already feels like he's going to fail.
Yeah, he went in there with a negative attitude.
Yep.
No, there was a I found interesting this as well. There was a self-awareness with the narration of like yeah, like the door was unlocked. You just walked right in and there were guns in there.
Yeah.
Isn't that convenient? Like there's a, even the way it was told, like it was almost like, well, I need to make this happen. So look, I'm just gonna come out and tell you, I know this seems, convenient, but that's how it was. Boom. Like there's something very self-aware with this section as well that I liked.
So it is playing with like the 4-part what is that thing called? The triangle.
Oh, Freytag.
Yeah. Yeah, Freytag triangle or whatever of narrative. If we think about like the first section was kind of setting the scene and having Kronauer learn about radiant terminus.
Uh-huh.
The second part really goes to Ilyushenko and brings back like how awful Solovyei is and sets Solovyei up as like the evil devil, like evil incarnate, as the big bad. Then this third section, amok, has that conflict, and then the fourth section should be the resolution. But like the conflict, our hero fails.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, not unusual because a lot of things have them fail at least the first time, and then they have to respond and succeed the second time. Because you can't just be successful; you have to like learn from whatever's going on. But he's at that point when we end part 3.
Yeah. It's like, is he? Yeah, is he suspended in oil starting?
Yeah, he's in the core, I guess, like in the oil and the whatever that might, however you want to envision that. But yeah, he's in the core. We'll find at the end of this, it seems like he's dead. That Kronauer's had his skull smashed in, but we quickly find out that like Solovyei kept him alive and resuscitated him because he has that power to be able to do that and to keep people alive and make them his like playthings, and that he's keeping him in that core with the oil and like has the guy guarding him who knocked him in the head and all that kind of stuff. But before you get that, I gotta tell you about my crazy ass dream.
Yeah.
So I can't even go into all of it because it's so wild. But Anthony was like the main part of this dream, and we were working together at like
You're having a lot of dreams about Anthony lately. What's going on?
I know. It's crazy.
This budding bromance is amazing.
So we were working at like essentially a publishing company. It was inside this huge complex. We had like a boss, and he had told me to read this like book. He wanted me to be like some author they thought was really cool who did not just like books, but also made like movies of his books and made like web series that were daily web series of all these different characters that he'd created. And like one was like a wrestler that was like super racist. And then there was like, and everyone was like, oh no, this wrestler's bad. And like another was like a clone. It was weird stuff. But he wanted me to read this one particular book and watch this movie. And it was like, I remember the movie was like pretty cool. And I was into it. And it was emotional and interesting. It was like these 3 guys were doing something. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, a UFO appears and zaps one of the guys away. And then apparently for the rest of the movie, they never address that. It's just like a random thing that happens. And it was like, okay, that's cool. That's kind of interesting. And then there's another part about spies. I can't quite remember all of it. Like a spy was coming back to the US and these 2 guys wanted to be spies and they knew that he was a spy. So they like convinced him that they were spies. And this was one of this guy's characters as well. And in the publishing house where we worked was like a giant complex of like a town. And there were like a bunch of bookstores. And there was like this one store that was run by an ex-girlfriend of Anthony's or something like that. And it was like orange bricks of different sizes in which they put like a broom on the bottom. So they'd be like brooms that were like rocks and sold them as kind of like rock pet brooms. It made no sense, but there was like heaps of these bright orange ass rocks that were also had like brooms on the bottom of them, which that made no sense. And then we figured out that we were maybe part of this artist's world, that he had created all these different characters, and we were trapped in one of his ones because we found out that our boss was named Frank, and Frank had an office that we'd never seen him come out of. And we went to the office that had this big sign that says like, "Welcome, Frank. Frank's first day is October 31st, and Frank's last day will be November 13th." And the reason why was that Frank agreed to work for 2 weeks as like the CEO as long as he could just get drunk constantly. So he lived in his office and just was fucking slosh drunk for 2 weeks and he would get fired on November 13th when that came about. So that was
Has anybody seen Frank? No, he just never comes out of there.
just wasted in there. He's just going to be here for 2 weeks getting wasted. Bizarre. It was so strange. There's so much more to it too. It went on forever. There's a whole thing about short selling stock that made no sense.
Well, that's because of your dumb phone app.
Stock. I know.
Yeah. I had a strange dream and I realized it probably was informed by Radiant Terminus. I was in some place kind of like Las Vegas-y,
Mhm.
Like there was, there was like hotels and palm trees, and it was like seedy but clean.
Yeah.
And I was riding on a skateboard for some reason, but the wheels didn't turn. Like it was always making that noise. Like when when a skateboard hits a rock and it makes that terrible like noise.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was that all the time, and it was miserable. So I'm like trying to like cross the street on a skateboard. It's not working very well. Like nothing's moving. Things aren't working the right way. And I was trying to get around this. There was this giant like mega church. Like those churches that are like shopping malls
Oh
basically.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you can walk around the shopping mall church, and then there's like a big stadium where it's just they're awful, right? It's like
Yeah.
so I was on the outside of one of those, and there's all these like Christian people coming in and out with their glib little smiles, and just like, oh, it's so annoying. Like there were two types of people. There were like the like dudes that quaff their hair and they try to look like Banana Republic grunge. Like so they were in like skinny pants and cardigan sweaters, like holding their
Nice.
Bibles. And then there's the guys that are wearing all the jewelry and have like 800 buttons on their suits, and the suit goes from like the bottom of the knee. Like, oh yeah, there was those two types of people all over the place. These religious folks, and like they were everywhere. And like, oh, are you here for the comedy show? It's Christian comedy. It's going to be clean and funny. I'm like, no, I'm trying to get out of here, but my skateboard doesn't work. and like, oh, you're here for the concert? It's going to be a great praise session. You better come on in. Like, so I was stuck with all these like crazy cult Christian people, and I was stuck on a broken skateboard just trying to get the hell out of there, and I couldn't. It was miserable. Like that's Radiant Terminus.
That is Radiant Terminus. And we're Branson, Missouri. Maybe Branson, Missouri is Radiant Terminus.
I was in Branson, Missouri. Get me out of here.
I remember years ago.
It was so many white cap teeth. I couldn't take it. Hey, aren't we just like Peter? Jesus tells us something, and we're like Peter because we let our ego get in the way. Like, I'm trying to get out of here, but my skateboard's broken.
I remember getting when we got telemarketer calls like to a landline like years and years ago. I got a telemarketer call where they're like, "We're calling to like offer you a special trip to Branson, Missouri, the entertainment capital of the world." I was like, "What?" Like, there's in no way does that claim make any sense. Like, you are not the entertainment capital of the world. He's like, "No, we got like really family fun shows." Like, no, I'm sorry. Like, you can't play that off. No,
you could VRBO like a 10,000 square foot cabin for $99 a night at Branson, Missouri.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so no, like I woke up from that being like, what the hell was that all about? But then it reminded like, oh, it's very similar to Radiant Terminus, right? With
can't get out,
everything broken down, and then just stuck in this cult-like world or whatever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the last we go into part 4 now, which is Taiga narracts, which narracts are one of the post-exoticist terms, but they essentially are like mini narratives. I think that there's an explanation for them are defined in post-exoticism in 10 lessons.
Okay, because I looked it up on a dictionary, and I was like, oh, I'm not really good at finding words in the dictionary, I guess, because I can't find narracts. I don't think that's a word.
I think it's explained in here, but now I can't remember where it would be. The romance is in here. Shaga is in here. Minor angels, the list of people. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't explain it in here. Maybe it's just used. Novels are interjoice. That's what I think I was thinking of. But yeah, they seem to be like short little mini narratives that are each about a different character. So the first one we get is Kronauer in chapter 23. Kronauer wakes up, and it's in the eye. The first person here is like, I wake up, I smell terrible, the oil, the terrible flash, all the smells, so many smells in this section. Like, I woke up much later. I smelled terrible, like waste oil, rotting flesh, urine, world weariness, terrible oil, terrible flesh, shooter or shootie's urine, truly terrible weariness, a horrifying smell. I budged a little and the stench intensified. It'll only get worse, I thought, so don't move. And so he's figuring out like what's happened, or trying to. He doesn't know when it was. He just remembers a night of hunts, of murders, and he's in the cell. And that it's going to happen to him for 1,047 more times, and even 10,111 times. So he's like trapped. Solovyei's brought him back to life. He's in this jail. He's in black oil, heavy oil, and heavy oil, and heavy black oil. So he's stuck there forever, or for 1,047 years, or even 10,401 full years.
So he's in New Jersey?
He's in New Jersey. he's he's in Midland, Texas.
Yeah. Oh, that's an oil. Yeah. I was just thinking of just like Jersey Shore, greasy hair people. It just stinks. Everything stinks of cologne and cologne and pepperoni pizza.
Oh my God. So things didn't work out so well for him. His attack on Solovyei has left him here. And then we get in 24, Solovyei's one of his poems, which you can always tell because they're in the special, one of his cylinders or whatever, because they're in the special font. And this is where I'm saying that this sort of seems to then be his recounting of what went on. So like his bloodthirsty frenzy had barely ended when I had one of my henchmen, Munzberg, knock him out. Then, once he was already soaked with the black and horrible oils of death, I carried him to the heart of the flames and set him there, making sure he dried out high against the fuel rods and slipping between his bones the magic words necessary for his eternal unhappiness, for the punishment I'd warned him about. And then after 8 hours or so, he began to moan again. Then 13 years went by. One more. The very mediocre fate of this Kronauer had bothered me from our very first meeting, but mostly it was his person I hated. From his appearance in the region, he had begun to tiptoe around my wives or daughters, doesn't matter. And again, I enjoyed it.
Frightening line, right?
That's a kind of recurring, like,
yeah, that is a frightening line.
It very much is. And that's like a very cult-like line. And then I enjoyed it for a minute, then 404 years went by. So years are spanning quickly here. Which, is funny. I hadn't thought about this until this moment. So 13 years went by, then 404. So that's 427, right?
Sure. I don't know. I'm not doing math.
417. 417. And then the next chapter, 25, is Hannko's Vergulian's chapter. And she says, then likely or not, a whole of 7 centuries. So 700 years have gone by on top of those 417. So that'd be 1,117. That number was maybe never referenced in there, but it's getting close to like, you'll be punished for like 1,000, whatever, 417 years. Like maybe we will see the end of his punishment.
Yeah. Do you ever make it out of the oil, or are you reborn to something new, or
is it like a bardo or?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's, so his.
It made me wonder too, like in the, like if you go back to like Genesis, where God creates everything in 6 days, rests on a 7th day. So, but like if you're actually a god and you're controlling, are you outside of space and time? And what is a year? What is 1,000 years? What is 7? Like the way the numbers just kind of whatever. I'll put you in for this long, that long. Like it makes it again harkens back to that kind of dreamlike God state that this Solovyei seems to be in, but
absolutely,
we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, from the Hannko. So for me, the most interesting chapter of this is chapter 25 because it's about Hannko and about what's happened. So she has gone 700 years have passed. There's a whole of 700 years, or 7 centuries, and she's now living outside of Radiant Terminus, several kilometers away in the Taiga, and she's found her own pit, the core that's like not super warm, but like can save her. And she ends up talking to it the way that Grandma Ugdal does, but trying to pretend that that's not what's going on. And then there's like this bit here on 357. Hannko Vogulian was old now, very old, and she lived as a recluse. At the beginning, Solovyei had kept on visiting her, using her dreams to enter her and invade her, completely taking over her and her space to walk in her house and snoop around the well, looking for a memory of the Grandma Ugdal. He had harassed her that way for something like 3 centuries or so, but then he had stopped appearing without any apparent reason and without any farewell. She lived in total autarky, which I feel is like some sort of autonomous anarchy.
Sure.
Like singular anarchy, like rather than a society that's anarchistic. But yeah, so then she just like, I love this part though. Once she finished with her housekeeping, once she had walked past her rabbit traps, and once she had buried a vagrant she had killed because he had bothered her, which happened once or twice every 12 or 15 years, she went back to her place, checked her rifles, and barricaded herself. Then, so as not to spend her evenings moping around gloomily, she wrote. And this is where she's trying to rewrite all the books that she had read but couldn't remember. Like these posters on it. So she's writing this world into existence. And she's alone. So she's like, but it was the anti-male pamphlets of Maria Qual, Rosa Wolf, Sonia Velasquez, and Luna Galani that emerged most powerfully from the point of her pen. they had been engraved even more brilliantly than all the rest in her memory. Which, so I think that this is interesting. So she's calling it like her reviving prose, blah blah blah. That this is kind of her world. So we've gone post apocalyptic. Like there's the apocalypse post Second Soviet Union falling that led to like Radiant Terminus and all those places. We have Solovyei being like this fascist dictator. Now he's left her alone for 400 years, and she's creating her own not society because she's alone, but she's creating some words that give you like literature that supposedly exposed the Cox language and set up a different way of existing.
Yeah.
And this is like that sort of like biblical, back to like your religious stuff, like a new Bible.
Yeah, and then it calls into question too, like it's being filtered through her and through her memory and like her best guess at it, kind of.
Yeah.
Which isn't that the way, which makes you wonder, like these other people's books, was that their best guess at what might have happened? Like there's a diminishing kind of effect at each pass it goes through.
Right. Like. That's true. This section I really like. I thought that part's pretty funny, but also like horrifying, and like it feels like, so
part of the housekeeping is just burying a vagrant. Vagrant bothering me. I go shoot him and bury him.
Every 12 years, one of these assholes comes by.
You gotta go shoot him.
Shoot him. So she's got a bit of the violence.
That might be like probably the most like true important of what the future is going to be like, because like think of like how upset we get if somebody physically calls us on our phone, like, motherfucker, how dare you call me? Like, I'm so angry. I'm just sitting here trying to watch YouTube videos and you're going to call me to talk to me? Who do you think you are, asshole? Like, oh, hi, Mom. Like our inability to be bothered right now.
Yeah. Like my daughter's school calls me at least once every day. They have like a robocall thing. It's driving me insane. Like I want to block their number. I don't care about your PTSO. I don't care about like any of the stuff that you're telling me about. Just stop leaving crazy voice messages every single day.
Yeah, because we're so into like text and email and stuff. Like the physical
fine.
The physical phone call is just too much of an intrusion on my life.
It makes I'm like listening to music, it stops the music so I can hear it ring.
Yeah.
Oh.
So in the vast future, you just shoot people if they bother you.
Oh man.
Leave everybody to be by themselves, please.
This is
that is the future.
There is one other section of this because I forgot like the other part of hers I had marked here too, which is hugely important. So she's writing on these anti-male pamphlets. She's whatever. Then there's on page 359. While Solovyei had carried out these nocturnal visits, Hannko hadn't dreamed of setting down these hailstorms of sentences that she always considered as repugnant and detestable as the intrusion they accompanied. These are his poems that we've been reading. But then Solovyei had stopped appearing within her, and after a century or two, she began to feel nostalgic, not for her father, whose monstrosity she continued to hate, but for his ranting creations. Solovyei's sad poetries had found a refuge in the inmost parts of her memory. She had buried them as far as possible beneath her consciousness, and yet, now that she was calling them up, she was exhuming them willingly and without any apparent deterioration. Once again, they were well-articulated, imprecatory, I don't know if that's how you say that, and bombastic. Once again, barely comprehensible and unnerving. Hannko copied them down quickly as if being dictated. She omitted practically no figure of speech and sometimes was said not to be able to express in her writing the needle's crackle on the wax and the tonal variations her father loved because they hypnotized or frightened their listeners. So she's writing these things down now. So like she's preserving both things.
That's perfectly religious as well, because they always talk about, especially with the Christian Bible, the New Testament being inspired. Right, as if like these are, I remember Christ's words exactly, and I'll put them like, even though they wrote them 70 years after their interactions.
Yeah, with people lived for like 500 years.
Well, no, not then.
Yeah,
that's the older ones.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
These ones, they died.
All of a sudden, the lifespan gets really short.
Yeah. After Noah's Ark, they all maybe 900 years is too long. Let's just do 80. But the idea of like the it's an inspired text. They always say that.
Yeah.
Theologians say it's an inspired text. And this is, she's writing down, like there's an inspiration here where it's like a perfect one-to-one translation of what the message was from hundreds of years before.
This is going to sound anti-religious, and I don't intend it to. And it's maybe just because I'm not thinking too clearly yet this morning, but I don't ever remember like what ages the like Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, like when they were hanging out with Jesus, they were like teenagers or like early 20s, right?
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, they would have been like kids.
Well, they were men. Like, because
I
back
mean,
then, like, I think you're like a man at like 8 years old.
yeah,
You
yeah,
probably already killed a couple people and had kids by like 9.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I get that part, but like if
No,
they're today,
they were like tax collectors and doctors, and they had full jobs, and so they were like full on integrated.
they're
They were
paying.
integrated in society and had like, yeah, they had all their.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
they
But like,
would have probably like in their 20s, maybe early. They would have been about Jesus's age, and he died at 33-ish, I think.
yeah, he does at
So
33, so they would have been like
they would have probably been like late 20s.
I don't know if I trust a lot of people nowadays in their early to mid 20s to,
Yeah.
if they're telling me about like something magical, I was like, no, I don't think Instagram's really going to save the world.
Well,
Like,
they wrote the Gospels like 40 years after.
Yeah.
Most of them were written around 40 years after Christ's death.
yeah,
Yeah, like 70 to 75, I think.
yeah. It's still interesting. I don't really think about them being so young.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's got both those. And then 26, the last chapter we're going to go through today is just back to all the smells. The smell of muddy snow carried on the detainees' boots, which I love that. The smell of muddy snow is weird. The smell of muddy snow, penal blood, muscle fatigue, penal cold, and filth. The smell of holes in other cells, and the smell that he himself left against the grill of a hairy, famished, muddy, and dead animal. So intense. And like, so then had Zobel Munzberg, who's the person who knocked him out and that is one of Solovyei's minions, is taking care of him, taking him to the showers. And is like, yeah, I had to hit you over the head with the shovel because you'd become uncontrollable. Like, so there's a moment where Kronauer was uncontrollable and sort of outside of it, running amok, and then they just brained him. And now that's where we are at this moment. So far, these three characters, where they are hundreds and hundreds of years later, trapped. Solovyei's still in charge and okay, but Hannko's sort of freaks. He's just given her up, apparently. And I think we're going to get a lot of other characters going on here as to like their updates and see where this all leads into. And I forget, I need to look at like what the reading is for Wednesday. Let's see if I can find it really quick. I think it's like the next like 50 pages or so. Terminus. It is going to be on Wednesday morning and Thursday morning. The podcast will come out, but chapters 27 through 38, which is up to page 415. So a bunch of chapters. This is where all these chapters are very short, and then the last part is 39 through 49. But this will move and be putting everything back into place, and we'll see where they all end up.
Awesome.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite line?
This one wasn't so much favorite lines, as more just kind of like favorite parts, I think. But if you have one, go ahead. Maybe I'll find one that I like.
This is one that I marked I marked a bunch. God, which one should I choose here? I think I'll go with this because I like. Oh, yeah. Wait, I was gonna go with one. I'll do two. So one is from Hannko Vugulian, where it's talking about her writing her stuff down, but she had never been an attentive reader, a model reader, never a good reader, and the contents of the novels she once had sped through had now vanished, not to mention their form, which for her had always been a wholly unimportant element. And I love that little hint about being a good reader includes watching and paying attention to form. And then on 333, when Kronauer's night of like hunting down Solovyei, and at least that would put an end to this hunting amok, this anger amok, and this fear amok, and all that went with it. Total regression to primitive hunting, intelligent sideline for instincts, and especially deep down, an irrepressible desire to kill, to slaughter, and to hurt, even if he couldn't remember anymore what had brought about this nightmare. Which I really like. And I don't even know anymore whether or not I've swerved away from Marxist principles. He thought that he didn't think anymore. Like his regression to that is pretty powerful. So he brought about like this Marxist utopia and gotten it down to like base instincts of trying to murder Solovyei and kill without thinking and just being there. So
yeah, I like this one just because I think personally I I suffer from imposter syndrome, and so this is like perfectly encapsulates it. Do you have a plan, Kronauer? You sham soldier. That's basically like what I feel like every day. Like every time I go teach, like, do you even know what you're teaching about? Like, are you allowed to? Are you even qualified for any of this?
Oh, I feel you that. Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna go shoot at the dark.
There's a body. Boom.
Maybe I'll hit something. I don't know.
Good enough. Oh my God.
I connected with that when I read that. I was like, yeah, it's basically me every day.
Oh man. Well, thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we'll be back on in just a couple days with the next section, the penultimate section of Radiant Terminus. And as always, you can find us on Twitter at open_letter or at Chad W Post or at Brian Wood _ and on Instagram for all basically those things too. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
I don't either. So yeah, hopefully I'll be more rested by Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my skateboard fixed.
Just so this, I'm gonna have some fucked up dream. I know that this section gets wild and it's gonna mess me up again. Anyways, okay, till next time.